Hello, dear friends. The most beautiful season of the year arrives laden with geopolitical tensions. Opinion piece. A turbulent spring. Green rebellion. Change of cycle. Systemic correction. Reality takes its toll. Readjustment phase. Time for adjustments. End of the energy illusion. Return to reality in spring. The price of self-deception. The old gives way to the new. Shift in the geopolitical order. Too many things are out of balance. Let's start. Spring fever is real, and this saying is more applicable now than ever. According to James Howard Chancellor, too many things are not working properly. Some are even breaking down. Tensions are rising as the green spark ignites the spring flowers. They can cut all the flowers, but they can never stop spring. A series of physical laws are unfolding that will return our affairs to normal, but this process may prove problematic. Chancellor argues that many factors in the world today are out of balance and heading toward an unavoidable correction. Asia is the first major victim of the Gulf glacier, as it was entirely dependent on a stable flow of oil without having invested in its own maritime security or energy alternatives. Now it suffers rationing of diesel, gasoline and natural gas. Europe, especially Germany, is presented as a tragic case of self-destruction. It abandoned nuclear power and Russian gas in the name of idealistic weather policies, becoming trapped in an energy crisis that is leading the continent toward medieval deindustrialization. Regarding Iran, the author describes its Shiite regime as an apocalyptic cult that aspires to the martyrdom and destruction of its enemies, although he qualifies this by acknowledging that its military capacity is limited. According to him, Iran will not be able to sustain a blockade of the Strait of Hormuz for long, and it will run out of resources and lose regional support. Reset News. Everything seems orderly until it isn't. Everything still appears to be under control, but the underlying structure is beginning to crack. The situation is becoming unstable with increasing pressure and changes in volatility dynamics. However, the markets are following their usual trajectory for now. The market may appear stable and orderly just before a regime shift, because internal tensions can build up. Zero Hedge insists that the market isn't breaking up, it's crawling, and that this kind of movement reduces the sense of urgency as internal structures deteriorate. Prepare for Change presents a paradigm shift as the moment when a society stops believing in its old shared history and begins to build a new one, with narrative as the main battleground. When that narrative breaks down, institutions and the way we understand reality also change. Cryptic message. Clock on. Green Castle. Clock on indicates that the countdown or time-limited event has begun. Green Castle signifies a phase of culmination, integration, and return to the heart center. It could mean something like, in quotes, the timer has been started and the castle's objective or location is in a secure or operational state. Kerry Kay says that something has ended and a new era of awakening and planetary renewal is beginning. Many people experience burnout, a sense of something being wrong, and the definitive closure of an old cycle, marking the end of obsolete structures in human consciousness. In his view, or in her view, we are trying to run a car with an empty tank, and that is impossible. Allow yourself to rest often. Take walks in nature. Skip household chores and avoid overly complex situations as much as possible. David Icke links the conflict in the Middle East to a potential disruption of the global energy supply. He argues that rising energy prices could have repercussions for the global economy as transportation and production costs depend on energy. He claims that President Trump is being used as a wrecking ball to dismantle the post-World War II order and replace it with a new system. He compares current events to the era of the Iraq War, suggesting a recurring script of intervention and justification of the war. The Storm Rider believes the end is only the beginning of a new era, and describes a series of game theory operations. In his view, the dark side created the internet to take control and monitor humanity, but the white hats captured the operations and are now using the network to bring the truth to light and awaken humanity. The white hats have also captured the operations and technology of Project Bluebeam regarding a fake alien invasion. What you are seeing and hearing about extraterrestrials is important so that powerful events can awaken the world's citizens and government sectors. Many things are game theory operations for a slow and controlled collapse. The true revelation will be that governments and coalition operations have worked with angels and benevolent spirits that are part of human existence. Middle East. Thousands of paratroopers arrived in the Middle East as the deployment intensifies. Iran will charge a toll for passage through the Strait of Hormuz. Trump says Iran will allow 20 oil tankers to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. Oil record its biggest ever rise in March. The price of oil surpasses $115 per barrel. The G7 is prepared to guarantee the stability and security of the energy market. The US is only certain of having destroyed 1/3 of Iran's missiles. The war could force Gulf countries to repatriate investments and trigger a global crisis. Iran attacks the world's largest aluminium factories and jeopardizes supplies. A Houthi attack in the Red Sea would increase the price of oil by $20 according to JP Morgan calculations. China and Pakistan propose 5 points to restore peace in the Middle East. Europe. The euro is nearing its worst quarter since 2014 due to the war. The European Commission confirms a cyber attack on its cloud infrastructure. The German Chancellor hopes that 80% of Syrians residing in Germany will return to their country of origin. The European Parliament has just approved mass deportations and trade sanctions against many nations that refuses that deportation, of course. Spain closes its airspace to US aircraft participating in the Iran war. The White House responds to Spain that it doesn't need its help in the Iran war. The Spanish army reinforces the Strait of Gibraltar with a deployment that changes the defensive balance. Spain closed 2025 with a public deficit of 2.39% of GDP. Spanish public sector investment lags behind other EU countries. The IMF places Spain in a better position to face the crisis due to its renewable energy development. Castellón Confidencial's YouTube channels have been hacked or hijacked and are being used to broadcast fraudulent content. I express my solidarity with these fellow journalists. Americas. More than 700 tons of crude oil removed from the Gulf of Mexico. A Russian oil tanker approaches to the port of Matanzas in Cuba. Trump hints a possible military action against Cuba. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.